Welcome back, new viewers and gamers. It's time for a little something new. I've been thinking about doing this for quite some time now, so I think from now on, depending on how well this video does, at the end of each and every one of my playthroughs, I'll start doing a little digging on unused content and even talk to you guys about it. So, without further ado, here's the unused content for Super Paper Mario, at least what I could find on the Mario Wiki. Which a lot of this does turn out to be true. Starting with this first page here, if you read this, early iterations. This game was originally announced for release on the GameCube, which I did remember bring up during the playthrough as well. So this game was originally meant to be on the GameCube before it was ported over to the Wii later on, as well as the controls for the game too. And was at one point considered for release on both the GameCube and the Wii, much like Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess was. Since that game both has a GameCube and a Wii version. Looks more like a Wii game in my opinion, but that's not the game we're talking about right now. But by summer of 2006, Super Paper Mario was a Wii exclusive. And previews of GameCube build showed icons of interacting with objects, characters, and items which resemble GameCube controllers, before being reworked for the Wii Remote with the Wii Remote's button layout. All character abilities will be activated with the R button rather than the different buttons they had on the Wii Final version. That being the 1 button, if I remember correctly, the A button. Those pixels, initially named Farron's, that's the first time I'm hearing about that, will be activated with the X button. And all pixels but Tippy seem to be one pixel who would morph into others using its fairy ability, such as Fairy Toss, Throw's predecessor, I guess what Throw later became. Get over here anyways. And Fairy Hammer, Kudge's predecessor, what he later became. So maybe initially the unused ladder pixel that we'll see later on was meant to be one pixel that had multiple pixel abilities, and as the game progressed, you would unlock more pixel abilities. That could have been what that ended up being, that honestly would have been better than just making 11 separate pixels. Though, then again, we wouldn't have gotten such cool designs like Boomer, if that were the case. The function to scroll text descriptions in the menu was labeled with the C-stick, everybody's favorite stick on the Wii Remote. Not the Wii Remote, excuse me, the GameCube controller. And some items use the A and the B button as shown in the description of their action commands. Both actions were changed to use the D-pad or the Wii Remote motions, controls on the Wii Remote. Standing still for a moment revealed GameCube D-pad input, which access specific parts of the game specifically. I guess unused parts that are still hidden away in the game's code. Alright, if you click the D-pad to the right, to the left, you get characters, you click it down, you get Farron's abilities, and to the right, you get items, or I guess you could change Farron's abilities. It's better that way to change Farron's abilities. And again, what later became the different types of pixels. This quick menu selection resembles a similar feature from Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, the original, of course, and was reworked to involve pressing 1 and 2 simultaneously. On to some parts of the early build. You see this little picture over on the side with the blooper boss fight in Chapter 3, however, you see that unused ladder pixel I was talking about before. It was theorized that this pixel was originally going to give the characters their 3D ability, before it was later given to Mario, and exclusively Mario. But like I mentioned earlier, perhaps this was that Farron pixel that was originally stated before that would have had all the pixels' different abilities. Personally, I think that idea would have been better than just having 11 separate pixels with no personality, but whatever. And barely any dialogue after you get them. Alright, an early build. An early version of the game has a different, darker looking version of the Woe Zone from Chapter 4. I remember bringing that up during that part of the game. With Mario still wearing his helmet, in the final game he doesn't wear his helmet. Also, an early screenshot shows Mario under the effects of the Megastar, but is colored very differently, giving his current colors rather than the initial one in Super Mario Bros. So it looks closer to his original, I guess, Super Mario Bros. 2 sprite, rather than the one from the very first game. Oddly, he is shown in his proper colors in the official trailer that was released at the same time. So I guess it's just early footage and they changed it last minute before that trailer came out, which may imply that the screenshot release was simply delayed. In a screenshot featuring Big Blooper, there was a pixel that's shaped like a ladder. As I mentioned before, it never actually appeared in the final game. This pixel would have been used to flip Mario into 3D. Yep, it's theorized. Well, it doesn't say it's theorized, it's straight up stated right there. As revealed by unused pixel data within the game's file. So that Farron pixel we found out about earlier, I guess wouldn't have been this ladder pixel. I guess that would have been a completely separate pixel. But yeah, right here, that ladder pixel was originally going to turn Mario and the other characters into 3D before it was given, just to exclusively Mario. That contains identical scripting to Mario's flip ability in the final game. Also, in the same screenshot, Tippy is present, but she is kidnapped by Francis. Forgot to mention that, the picture I just showed earlier? Yeah, that part in the game, you're not supposed to have Tippy, because Geek over here decided to steal her away. Spin the game, and by the time she is rescued, Big Blooper cannot be fought again, sadly. Finally, the scene depicting Bowser and Peach wedding at the beginning of the game was also slightly different in the pre-release versions, which is kind of unnecessary, but whatever. There are no flowers decorated in the columns, the rising of the Chaos Orb was surprisingly light, and Count Blick raises his cloak up earlier than he did in the final version. Plus, in the screenshot, Peach is standing instead of being knocked over, and Bowser looks normal rather than shocked. Alright, and screenshot features in the E3 2006 demo shows difference in the lineland roads, specifically in a second area with 2 bricks surrounding a question mark block. And green Koopa Troopas is standing on the platform. The smaller trees are missing. And the equations detailed in the sky have symbols not seen in the final game, such as the Sigma symbol. Or the summation symbol, that's also known as the Sigma symbol. A picture taken during 2006 World Hobby Fair in Tokyo also reveals that Thirdly initially had a transparent body, much like the other pixels. Alright, now let's show off all the pixels. Here's the early logo before it was finalized, kind of mimicking the logo style that the original 1000-Year Door had. Alright, here's the same picture from earlier. Yep, Tippy's in this picture, so maybe it was thought of later in development that Tippy wouldn't be available throughout most of this chapter, until the very end, of course. So that was probably a later addition. Alright, Mario's colors definitely do look a little different, and the screenshot, yeah, like, look at the Koopas for a bit. Their textures look slightly crummy, I guess, if that makes sense. But then again, it was pre-release stuff. They weren't done polishing it up. Alright, here's another screenshot of Unused Super Megastar Mario, and here's that picture from the Woe Zone I remember bringing up in one of those episodes during the part of Chapter 4. It's noticeably darker there, and Mario does still have his helmet on, and the background has all these weird orange and white circles that aren't in the final version. And here's an early version of that scene, which looks a little funny to me, I don't know. And here are those early versions of the Yelled Town folks that I remember bringing up early in the playthrough. Also, Peach is here, which this suggests that was after Chapter 1. Either that or, I guess, as a way to test out the game. They could, like, Peach was probably part of, I wouldn't say the demo, but I guess the developers, as a way to test out the game, also was using Peach here before she was locked away after Chapter 1. Either, like I said before, this could be after they played through Chapter 1, but I think the former is more likely. Anyways, one thing about these Yelled Town people, they kind of look similar to Mimi. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys are related to Mimi, or if Mimi is some sort of precursor to their designs that's still left in the game's files. Anyways, the equations do look a bit different in Chapter 1, as known as the linelands. And the equations do look a little different too. You see the little Sigma symbol right over here. And here's another screenshot of that. Excuse me, trying to X that out. And here's another picture. Like, look closely at Peach's parasol. This parasol actually looks very different to how it does in the final game, which is probably during the GameCube build of the game. And notice how most of the platforms there, those grass ones, look a little different too than how they look in the final game. So clearly this is just precursor screenshots of when this game was in its GameCube stage. And I kind of like it. And notice Peach's parasol, it has a little bit of gray around the heart piece, where in the final game that's absent. It's all transparent and whatnot. Alright, here's a part of 3-1. That's obviously a reference to 1-2 in the very first Mario game. And again, Tippy is here when she's not supposed to be. As well as the Koopas have sunglasses in that shot when in the final game they do not. Here's another screenshot of 3-1. Alright, there's only a few more things left. Unused data. Items. There are some unused items still stored in the game. Most of them are labeled unavailable item, because, it's not supposed to be used, but whatever. And do not do anything. Additionally, graphics exist for several items that do not appear in the game. Notably, the pink cooking disc, as you can see right over here, is functional and referred to in-game as Cooking Disc PI. Cooking Disc 1 in the PAL version. Though it does not add any pages to the dining specializer. Most likely the first recipe page was going to be obtained via a cooking disc instead of being built in from the start. This also explains why the purple disc, a cooking disc, is called Cooking Disc PU instead of Cooking Disc P. Alright, and apparently the Bushi was originally going to be used in this game. Obviously, just like in the first 2 games, it would have turned Mario invisible, but since the battle system is much different, in this game than it was in the first 2 games, it probably would have just been a way to make Mario and Co invisible and invincible for a time, much like the block item. So that's probably why they got rid of it. It was just too redundant with the block item, and I guess they just wanted something new. Alright, here's Cooking Disc P, a DS cartridge, since at the time of this game being out, the DS was the latest game console, the latest portable console. An unused key, I would have had a feeling this would have been used sometime during Chapter 8. It could have been used sometime during Chapter 8. Could have been used during Chapter 4 maybe as well. Either that or again, unused Castle Black keys is my guess. Same with this one, which has inverted colors to the last one we just looked at. Alright, now on to unused enemies. Didn't anyone find it really weird how Shy Guys didn't show up not just in Thousand Year Door, but also in Super Paper Mario? Well, apparently Shy Guys were originally going to show up in this game. Like, they're really only a huge part of the first game during Chapter 4. And oh boy, wait till the next Paper Mario game. They're going to be a huge part in another certain Chapter 4 as well, and in another Paper Mario game that comes after that one, if you know what I'm talking about. Alright, Fly Guys, kind of different to the ones in the first game, where the ones in the first game had balloons. These ones had those little propellers like in the Yoshi games. I would have preferred the balloons, personally. Spear Guys, how they appeared in the first game. I have a feeling they could have... I have a theory that maybe specifically Spear Guys were going to show up during Chapter 5. I guess. That's probably the chapter where they would have made most sense, in my opinion. And Stoke Guys, just like the ones you see in Chapter 4 during the General Guy boss fight, were going to show up in this game as well. And same with Shy Guys. Unlike Shy Guys, however, Wigglers did not show up in Paper Mario until Sticker Star. Oh boy, that game. He's definitely an integral part of the story in that game, and we'll get to that in a future day, but for now, it's funny how Wiggler was actually meant to show up in this game instead of Sticker Star first. And not in the first two games, weirdly enough. And notice how Wiggler also has black shoes instead of his normal red ones, and a slightly different nose. Alright, now, these black Goombas are pretty interesting. A black Goomba known as a Kamikaze Goomba. Kamikaze referring to S-attack, I cannot say on here, by military aviators. Possibly meaning that Kamikaze Goombas were supposed to explode on contact with the player. Kind of like those Koopa enemies in Super Mario Land on the Game Boy. Something like that, where when you jump on them, they explode. I have a feeling a certain something else would have happened with the Goombas as well. I have a feeling they would have had pretty high attack power as well, but there's nothing really backing up that claim. Alright, Squiglet with a different color. I think I prefer the color from the final game, but this looks nice too, I think. And a Squig with a different color. The purple shade from the final game is better, in my opinion. Alright, and it looks like unused sprites for the Smorg enemies from Thousand Year Door. So what role would the Smorgs have played in this game, I wonder? And why would they be in a completely different dimension of Mario's main world? Oh well, we'll never know. If this game ever gets a remake, if they ever go back to that idea, that'd be nice. A green boomboxer. Probably would have been found in Chapter 4. I have a feeling this might have been the pre-used color for the Blast Boxer enemy in Chapter 4, before the color that we finally got for them in the final game. Who knows what their stats would have been as well. Here's a purple Muth that I theorized because of the color, this would have been found in Chapter 7-1 and 7-2. Like, it looks like an enemy you'd find in the underwear. I mean, I wonder what these mammoths did that was so bad they had to get sent to hell, but whatever. I also theorized I might have stats in between the Muth enemy and the Mega Muth. The Muth's found in Chapter 5 and the Mega Muth's found in Chapter 8. Alright, this is an early design for the Underchomps. Instead of them being red, blue, and yellow, they're black, gray, and white. Monochrome colors, in other words. I prefer the final version. I theorize this blank shell texture probably would have been used during Chapter 6, so Koopa probably would have died during that chapter. And just like the Shy Guys and the Wiggler, Monty Mole being another main enemy that did show up in the first game, but weirdly enough was, well, except Wiggler. Wiggler didn't show up in the first game, but just like the Shy Guy did show up in the first game, but for some reason wasn't in Thousand Year Door and wasn't in Super. But here we are, there's unused sprites for them. Both one in the ground and one standing. I have a feeling they also would have been used during Chapter 5. And the final unused enemy being this regular Samurai guy having the same colors as the final boss in Chapter 6, if you decide to do that part of the postgame. In the final game, this armor is used for a big Samurai guy, but here it's used for a regular one. I prefer the big Samurai guy just because, you know, they can give it more HP and way more attack power than a regular one. But it's nice to know this is in the game's files. That makes me think there might be a file for a small Samurai guy with this color scheme as well. Now for some unused animations. There are some unused animations, including a side view of Mario climbing a ladder and Dementio walking. Using a glitch, a player can activate Mario's normally unused ladder animation. Alright, here's Mario climbing, which I think looks fine, but I have a theory that this might have been made before the 3D gimmick was implemented into the game. Since I guess originally it was going to just be full-on 2D before they thought of the 3D gimmick, which is why they didn't have ladders, excuse me. Also, this Dementio walk, it's never seen throughout the final game because most of the time he's floating and other times he's just standing. I'm kind of glad this wasn't used because this looks goofy as fuck. I'm sorry, this looks really stupid. Coupled with Dementio's smiley face, it looks dumb. I'm glad they didn't use this. Devs probably thought the same thing as well. Alright, objects. Various hidden objects are found within levels with root nodes disabled. Re-enabling them on a model viewer such as the no-clip website, I'm not going to click that, reveals unused geometry in multiple areas. Alright, so this unused switch, with unknown purposes, probably to activate the minecart is my guess, in Chapter 5-3 uses a texture from the minecart rails. A chest takes this place in final game. So it's got a nice little 3D model and everything. And the minecart looks a little different than how it does in the final game. Another version of the minecarts from Chapter 5-3. Just a closer look. I don't really know the difference, I'll be honest. There are a number of unused maps and rooms in the game. These include a room in the Woe Zone featuring a chest containing Piccolo's card, which isn't in the final game, and unused in the final areas of Castle Black, and a room in Floor Caverns with a save block and some enemies. Some used maps have unused collision data and textures in the third dimension. For the player, if the player manages to spawn in one of these maps, they can be played normally. This includes the Mario Bros. House, the Bowser's Castle, and the chapel in which part of the prologue and the ending takes place. So I guess you can walk through all those if you ever really wanted to and you decide to hack your game. Alright, there's a bunch of things in the Korean version, I'm not really going to bother with that. There's unused text. Alright, that little text there for code, global.text, contains an entry containing Anna_happy_coin, which I guess is supposed to be for the coin flower power-up. Yeah, that's what the code is for that. It's placed alongside other general interim items, such as the Happy Flower, the Pal Pill, which I don't remember that item. What's a Pal Pill? And Megastar. It's titled with what have been, that's a coin flower. Grab them to pocket the coins they are carrying. Some of the flowers will have up to 3 coins in them, as seen in the final game. But I guess that text is unused. There's some used things here. I'm honestly a little afraid to play these, even though one of these I already played off screen, just so I don't get copyrighted. So if you're interested in this, I'll put this in the link in the description. And finally, just a few miscellaneous artworks. Like, it looks like this artwork of the Golden Fuzzy was originally going to be used in a game, just like the Golden Fuzzy boss fight in Thousand Year Door. Alright, and last but not least, leftovers from Paper Mario Thousand Year Door are present, with slight revisions. This includes enemy variations such as green fuzzies, really, just like the ones found in the first 2 games. Spinias, the green and pink Spanias, since in the final game those are the only spinning enemies found. Clefs, normal Clefs in the final game, only Bald Clefs and Moon Clefs are available. And Hyper Clef. How would a Hyper Clef and by extension Hyper Goomba, Hyper Spike Goomba, and Hyper Paragoomba enemy work in this game? I guess they went unused because of that, and that's the last game we ever see those guys in. Notably, this is also including the Gold Fuzzy, which has reused artwork on the back cover of the official Nintendo Power Guide and the Primus Strategy Guide, so I guess they just never took those out, or I guess they were almost in the final game, but they were taken out last minute, that could be why. The Gold Fuzzy's file name was renamed, I'm not going to say all that code. Spinia's file name was renamed for, not going to say that code, and Spunia's file name, not going to say the code again, suggesting that they were in process of being retooled. Additionally, a blooper baby has graphics as a test enemy, just like the baby blooper from the first game during the blooper boss fights, which appears incomplete as the texture features a solid black line at the bottom, possibly to test collision. The game's normal blooper is also labeled as a test enemy in the texture files, test Gesso, _Gesso and then the dash. So they were both likely used to test underwater gameplay. And yeah, you can see with the baby blooper sprite over here, it still has outlines on it, which makes me think they just took the same sprite from the first game as a test object. Alright, here's another cut from the unused ladder pixel. Another little picture of him. It's a little hard to see that, it's a bit small. And finally, the title card without the logo on top. And with the unused ladder pixel once again. That's kinda it. Now, there's this little video over here, I think I'll put in the link in the description below, for those who might be curious about the unused maps in the game. But anyways, I think that's it for unused content. Let's see how this video does, and if it does well, I'll do this for some of the other playthroughs I've done in the past, as well as future playthroughs. So if y'all enjoyed this and you want to see more, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. And consider becoming a YouTube member for just $3 a month for special things to access, like my Pokemon Insurgence playthrough as well. Consider answering the question of the day. Thank you all for watching this video on unused content from Super Paper Mario, and I'm not doing Paper Mario Sticker Star just yet. There's a bunch of other playthroughs I have planned, so keep on the lookout for those. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Have a berrific day.